Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, welcome everybody to the January 16th board meeting. Paul, go ahead and turn it over to you for roll call, certification of quorum, and proof of notice.
Okay, we've got Jim Carter, Uwe Roper, well, I'm gonna go long day. Brian McAdon, Nathaniel Monks, George Custis, and Joe Mulcahy present, and also Matt Barger on Zoom, so a full quorum. And notice was posted in accordance with Florida statute.
Okay, thank you, Paul. I know Paul sent out earlier this week the minutes of last board meeting. Everybody have a chance to review that? If so, can I get a motion to approve?
Move for approval.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, before we jump into the president's report, I just wanted to congratulate Johan for winning his first two matches in the tournament. There was a handful of people yesterday and today, so thanks for coming out and supporting Johan. He actually beat the '1 seed yesterday in a, he'll continue to, I think you should, send us out there's a handful of people and I think the crowd's getting bigger. So just send a note out to people. I want to thank everybody for attending this month's board meeting, and Happy New Year to everyone. During our last meeting, Paul highlighted that we had a lot of accomplishments by the board and the community over the past year. Reflecting on those successes, it's clear that we had an incredibly productive and rewarding year. To name just a few highlights, right off the bat, we replaced the roofs on both the community center and the pro shop. So we were able to shore up our insurance and have no issues there. The parking lot was resurfaced. 6 new pickleball courts were constructed, and as I came in, the place looks beautiful over there with the new concrete the pavers and the bike racks and everything. I'm sure everybody sees that as they come in. The roofs and shades were added to the pergola near the bocce courts, and we're getting a lot of use out of that with cards and a lot of other games. New brick pavers were installed for seating and viewing around adjacent to court 6. I'm sure many of you have walked by court 6 and seen that. We have the tables and chairs and umbrellas up there now. There's a match going on and you see people out there right now watching the matches in this new viewing area. We're in the final stages of completing the pavers by the canopy. I think that was completed maybe yesterday. And the gathering spaces near the pickleball courts. Landscaping enhancements were made to the front of the community center and the pro shop. And we have a fire pit and couches were added to the courtyard near the restaurants, creating a new favorite gathering spot for residents during the day and evening. We went out to dinner last night and just popped in here to the community center to see who was here. And there was people sitting around the fire pit. And I think it's a real attraction to bring people over to the community center. Well, I'm sure I may have missed mentioning a few things. It's clear we had a banner year. A big thank you goes out to everyone who supported Courtside Restaurant as well. It also had a very successful year, and thanks for your continued patronage for this cherished community amenity. On January 7th, we hosted a long-range planning workshop, which was well attended by both community members and the board. One special thanks to Brian McAdon for facilitating this workshop, which generated 20, I think, potential. Was it 20? I think we had 19 and we popped another one in there for 20, right around 20.
Right around.
And for us to consider for the upcoming year and beyond. And thank you to everyone who attended and participated. Brian will provide a summary of the workshop's results and an outline of next steps later in the agenda. Looking ahead, one of our key priorities will be to establish a long-term planning committee. This group will help guide the implementation of these projects in the coming years, especially as the board transitions to welcome new board members. I just want to thank you all for your continued engagement and support in making our community a wonderful place to live. That's it for my president's report. Paul, I'll turn it over to you for the manager's report.
Thank you, Joe. So as everybody can see now, season's in full swing with most of the amenities that are pretty much packed each day, especially in the mornings. This high demand obviously can make it hard at times to find a parking space with our limited parking we have. So if you're driving to the community center, please make sure that you're parking within the parking space lines. Over the past few weeks, we've noticed a couple cars coming in crooked and actually taking up 2 spaces, which is not good for us. So make sure you're parking within the lines, please. And additionally, if you're able to walk, ride, or carpool to the community center, that's even better because it helps free up more spots for us and the members. So we appreciate your help with that. To piggyback on what Joe said, again, talking about the accomplishments of the busy summer we had with the projects, I just want to finish by saying thank you for everyone's patience and cooperation because throughout this whole process, we had to cordon off areas and not, and so it's kind of a tough to get through some of the areas of the community center. So we appreciate your patience and we're just glad it's all pretty much done. Yesterday, I sent an email out to all the members letting them know that we'll be receiving an email from Get Quorum tomorrow, Friday, which will be inviting them to sign up for electronic voting. It's going to be a consent form they're going to send you via email. By signing this consent form, this will allow Pelican Marsh to send the annual meeting notices and other required notices now electronically rather than having to mail paper packets as we do now. So we encourage every member, once you get this consent form emailed to you, to go ahead and sign up and sign it. So we can now start sending this stuff electronically to you and saving the foundation $1,000 each year in mailing and printing costs that we pay now. So please sign up for electronic voting when you get that email. On a housekeeping note, as we're busier and a lot more people playing the amenities, obviously the courts are much busier too, in the bocce courts. So we're asking that when you play bocce or tennis, we've been noticing a lot of clay being tracked into the community center and to courtside. Susan over at courtside was saying, hey, can you talk to the members because they're tracking in the clay in the bar area. So we're just asking that if you're playing tennis or bocce that day to please make sure that you properly clean your shoes. Or even better yet, bring an extra pair of shoes with you. So when you're done playing and playing on going to courtside or inside the community center, just change shoes. That'll say solve the issue for us. And it helps us keep up the cleaning better, keep our floors cleaner and last much longer. So we appreciate that. And lastly, just a reminder that Valentine's Day is just a few weeks away. So don't forget to buy a card or some candy, or perhaps you can make dinner reservations at courtside to celebrate your better half this year. I can speak from experience a few years in the past. I forgot, and boy, you never live it down. So just a fair warning. And that's my report.
Okay, thank you, Paul. Anybody have any questions about the president's report or general manager's report? Comments, questions? Okay, thanks. Nathaniel, treasurer's report.
Thank you, Joe. Good afternoon. I'm going to give a treasurer's report. This time I'm going to go for the entire year of 2024. So we'll do the recap, the year end as of December 31. I'll pause for a second while Brother Paul brings that up on the screen so you can see it. It is mostly good news. Wait for it. Mostly.
I said that to that.
Well, while he's doing that, I'm going to tell you the part that's easy and that you will remember. And I'll round the numbers so that it's easy to remember. Okay, so last year, our operating surplus was 50 grand. We had 50 grand more than our budget. That was mostly because of fitness. Court sports did better than we expected, way better, and a good trend there. Interest was great. We had a lot of interest on our money that was sitting there not being used. And we actually got a cable discount we didn't see coming. Usually cable always goes up. It's in our contract, it's going up, up, up. But thanks to Paul and some fine print, we got a little discount once, a one-time thing, and it landed last year. So we were 50 grand better than budget, all totaled on our operating surplus. Our operating revenues were 35,000 better than budget due to this interest income of $80,000. We had 80 grand of interest income. Most of our career here, interest income has been peanuts. But now, the last couple of years, it's been very nice, and it was better than budget. We really thought the interest rate would zip right back down to almost zero, and it has not, still has not. It's tweaking down a little bit, but not plummeting. And so we're still getting good interest income. Our operating expenses were 14,600 over budget, mostly due to higher payroll. We had hoped for even cheaper insurance than what we had to pay. We did, as Joe mentioned, short up our insurance because the previous year we got hit pretty hard for the roof, and so that will be better when in 2025. We did have some computers break and HVAC repairs, and that's why our expenses were up a bit. Our activity centers were 21,000 better than budget, and the restaurant was 5.6% better than last year. So the court side is still doing good. Now, here's where we're geniuses, and you're going to see, or at least hear, how we were geniuses. There were 68 net homes sold in Pelican Marsh. That means 68 that were sold to people that did not already live in Pelican Marsh, so we get to keep their resale fee. 68. Normally it's around 100 to 110 for the history. But the finance committee had to guess a number of how many houses would be resold this year. And nobody in the world could guess, well, in the way the economy was, what was going to happen. And they almost pegged it exactly. They guessed 65. We made a budget and it was 68. We're only 3 houses off for the whole year of sales. It's amazing. So that's part of the reason our budget looks so on budget is because the finance committee did such a good job. So we sold 68 instead of the 65 that we had expected. And as always, all our revenue from the resale fees always goes to the replacement account first when it got fully funded at $296,000 in July. Then we moved forward and put the rest of it in the capital improvement fund. The operating account, which is where your HOA fees go, was not affected by the resale fees. Page 2. All right, now you're going to see we have 3 kind of accounts, as you might remember. We have an operating account where your HOA fees go, the replacement account, and the capital account both get their money from the resale fees. And as the replacement account, as you know what that does. And the capital fund account, that one is for improving your amenities. Let's start at the operating fund, where we begin with 482,000 last January 1. At the end of the year, 481,000, almost the exact same amount of money. Replacement fund, 291,000, and we spent a lot of money out of there because of the roof was bad, and a few other little things, but we did not plan on spending the money on the roof. It wasn't ready. It wasn't time for it to be spent, but the roof failed the inspection. It had to be done. So now all the major items in the replacement schedule have already been paid for. So they're good for several more years. We won't be buying another roof or another parking lot or anything like that for a long time. And so every year for the next something like 6 years, you'll see that we anticipate that replacement fund balance going up higher and higher every year because that's what the schedule tells us it'll do. We'll just draw interest on that. Capital fund. Capital fund is where your amenities are going to get improved when there's money to do that and the board wants to do that and you want them to do it. Here we go. Capital fund, it started out the year at 438, ended the year in 180 because we did several good things. Most notably would be the 6 pickleball courts. Page 3, please. Here's where we got our revenue. On the left-hand column, you'll see the year-to-date actual 2024, then the column where what we thought it would be, the budget, and then over to the right, you can see what 2023 was. Such as the top one, it says fitness. And look at the fitness revenues, $515,000. We only budgeted 385. And the previous year is 419. That's a massive increase. So our surplus was 65,000, better than budget. Court sports. We had thought there would be a 259 expenditure there. It was only 251. Merchandise sales is very good, almost the exact same as the budget and almost the exact same as the previous year. But 4 years ago, it was almost nothing. And all the previous years, it was almost nothing. She's doing a great job with merchandise revenue. Social, we try to break even on this one. This is just those events that you get these emails about. And as you can see, we took in and spent about the same amount of money. Food and beverage down at the bottom in its own little blocks. This will be courtside. We had budgeted. My eyes are going blurry on me, Paul. What did we budget? 85? And we spent 86. So almost exactly what the budget was. There it is. When you get to my age, well, you already did. So we were 1,000 over budget out there. Next page. This is the home sales. As you can see, we sold 77 homes, but 9 of them were just people like me moving around within the neighborhood to get new neighbors. So those 9 didn't have to pay their fee again. And 68 resale fees. We had budgeted 65. That was 3 over budgeted. And all those arrows and numbers down below there just explains what I told you about earlier, is that we put all the resale money into the replacement account until we move any excess over that into the capital account. So everything was good. Thank you.
Thank you, Nathaniel. Any questions for the board or the community with respect to the treasurer's report?
On the courtside comparison, last year, is that a full 12 months in 23?
The question for those at home was the court side comparison from last year to this year a full 12 months? And the answer is yes.
Okay, if there's no other further questions, let's move on to number 9, old business. Brian, I'll turn it over to you for the long-range planning next steps and summary.
Very good. Thanks, Joe. As Joe mentioned, we had about 30 residents and the board participate in a workshop on January 7th. During that workshop, we generated about 19 or 20 specific ideas and themes. And one of the next steps that we have is, Paul will be asking you to construct a survey to gather from the entire community their interest around those 19 potential projects or amenity additions. I think we'd like to establish some kind of deadline related to when we'd be able to get that out. What are your current thoughts on when we'd be able to get that out? Survey.
It would take about maybe a week to put the survey together. So as soon as I'll speak to you and the other board members about getting how they want it formatted in a week. And then, so we could get out within the following week. So.
Okay, so let's try to work towards that.
Okay.
I think one of the options on the survey needs to be something along the lines that I'm satisfied with the current amenities and don't see a need for anything additional. Because there might be some residents that would start. Oh, wow.
Big difference.
Okay, sorry about that. There might be some residents who feel as if we don't need to do anything at this point. So let's make sure we include that as well.
Mm-hmm.
From the workshop, there were some central themes, and certainly parking and space constraints were a major concern of the community. Just want to share an update. Joe and I have been working with Paul to communicate with the CDD and the golf board, looking for additional parking spots across the street. We continue to receive favorable news in terms of working with them towards that. We're in the process to work with Collier County to get affirmation that those spots across the street would be recognized for us to use in any further building and construction we use here to get credit for those spots. So we don't want to move forward with any construction project till we have that. Just looking at further next steps, we said that we needed some additional gym research associated with statistics of usage of the gym. I'm willing to take the lead on that if everyone's comfortable with that, or if somebody else has a interest. Updating competitor analysis, that was a theme or a request that came out of the workshop. We had kind of penciled your name, Uwe, next to that, if that's something you
Yeah,
could
happy
work,
to do it.
take
Yeah.
the lead on. Okay. And then once we have those three items, feedback from the survey, this group, I think, will get back together to share the results and to possibly use some decision modeling tools to identify based on either environmental or cost constraints versus benefits, what concepts and ideas we feel warrant bringing forth to the rest of the community. So taking the community feedback and then also taking in some high level cost estimates, as well as looking at environmental constraints, we'll do that. I think, Joe, what I'd like to do, there were some items identified in that workshop, I think 9 of them, that are what we call just do it type items. Like,
Right.
why don't we do this tomorrow? So I like to just go through those real quick.
Absolutely.
And so the first item that we have, and we're going to share the notes from that workshop as part of the minutes of this meeting, so everyone could see those ideas, concepts, follow-up items, and so forth. The first item was relocation of the spin bikes. And I know, Paul, you have been working on this and looking at scheduling of the spin classes. What can we do and when related to that?
It's a tough one because looking at the other activities we had scheduled throughout the week and it's very busy, that a lot, two or three of the days each week when we have spin bike would be happening at the same time another class or activities happening in that same room. Is not enough room to put the spin bikes against the wall and then have enough room still in that room to have the activity. Chair yoga is one example, because we had to deal with the tables and chairs in there too. So with the additional bikes in the room, now pushing everything against the wall, there's no room for chair yoga. They need more space. So we're trying to figure out a way to make that happen, to move it, because and then the turnover time to when the next class happens, to get the bikes out real fast to make it in time for the next class is tough because we only have a limited amount of time to move the stuff around. So
Do we have any flexibility? We've talked about this and, brainstorm different ideas. Do we have any flexibility to put a temporary surface, temporary rubber floor in here in Suite C here, and then store the bikes, behind the curtain there or otherwise?
but like in that problem, we have there's not enough room behind that curtain to fit all the bikes because the other another equipment and all our storage of tables is back there now. And then like for instance, on Thursdays, we have Bible study, which takes up these entire 2 rooms. And in order, David has to start setting up early to get ready for the room. And it takes, almost 45 minutes to an hour to get the room set up. And so by the time spin ply class is done, there's not enough time for him then to quickly get all the bikes put away and then set up for the Bible study. Or it's tough too. We're gonna have we need extra additional staff to come in to help him, change over the room that fast.
I've been on top of this a little bit over the last year, and I really don't think there's an easy answer on this. I think some people thought, we just need to focus on doing this, but Paul has worked on this diligently for a long time. There's just not enough room for the bikes in our present situation. We'd have to actually make a change, and that probably would cost money.
Which goes back to the long-term planning of the expansion.
Right.
Okay, it sounds like we're not going to solve this now. I would ask the community if you have any ideas or concepts to feel free to bring to any of us. Dino, if you want to hit on something real fast, that's fine.
Thank you. Dino Laursalis, Ariel. Couple things about, I understand it, we're running out of everything. One of the things I heard that time constraints because of there's not enough time for this or that. Is that because the spin class is only available at that time? Have they ever thought about maybe doing it after Bible study, or that's not feasible? Second question or statement I should say is, when you evaluate out there, one of the biggest concerns, not just for bocce of where those spin bikes are,
but the aesthetic value of when you walk out there, you walk into them. There used to be nice tables out there. It looked really, really presentable. When you look at it right now, and I assessed it yesterday when I had to go to 5:30, it seems like, especially now that we have this here, where there's a lot of tables were moved over to here. And what it does is it makes a large area under the newly enclosed patio, if you want to call it that. And when you look at it, it's almost like a logical space where the bikes, the way they're stacked this way, why can't they be stacked against the back of the conference room or your office out of the way there? Because if you look at the maybe 20 by 20 of the southwest corner of that covered space, there's no tables there, it's just empty. So why can't the tables be moved out 8 feet, 10 feet? And now you have a simple place to put those bikes that look less, just looks like there's at least a spot for them. Not walking right outside, people tripping when they go out there, you can't get, it just, that was a suggestion after last night looking. I mentioned it's maybe months ago, but it is, but that's a suggestion because that's an easy fix, does quickly. And I don't see how that could be any kind of a problem.
Well, the new space now created by the roof on the pergola, we have ordered, and there should be here shortly, new tables and chairs that are specifically for card players, and they're that card players like. They didn't like the other tables because they're slatted for the patio tables. These are specific, nice upgraded card tables with chairs. So the plan was to fill that entire area with those tables and chairs.
How many?
6.
So 6 are going to take up that whole area?
Well, with 6 in the covered area,
Mhm.
and then maybe 2 more up in between the overhang now that's there now, part of the building.
So it seemed like one of the problems might be the allocation of square footage and the looking at how you're utilizing space, because I look at an area back there that's probably about 40 by 50, more or less. I mean, I don't know exactly, but 40 by 50. So you're looking at about 2,000 square feet. If that 2,000 square feet, you're utilizing a table, which is maybe 5 by 5, it's 25 square feet, plus the space around it for tables. The math doesn't really work out for 6 or even 8 tables. Maybe we have to look at, because we are in such a crunch with whether it's parking, space, time, maybe it's time to really look at, maybe we can't have 14 feet between tables. Maybe we have to have 6 feet between tables. This way we can accommodate everybody and not just one group or 2 groups, and try to make the place look a little bit nicer.
Well, Paul, is it fair to say that you could take another look at, there's a configuration that possibly could use what Dino's suggesting of putting the bikes against the other wall? We could at least look at it. If we don't think it's viable, then we're back to the long-term planning that we need
We're used to.
we need a spin room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I mean, it looks, the way it used to look out there with the nice tables out there was so presentable. And when you came to the community center, whether you're playing bocce, you're coming out there to have a cup of coffee or meet people, it was presentable. It was part of the patio. And now with this here, it would naturally just be part of the wraparound. It just doesn't, I understand we're running out of space, and that's why I'm proposing that you're gonna have to, at some time, a little bit of a compromise where you might not be able to get everything. And you said there's not enough room back there. Well, maybe because there's too much stuff back there that we don't use. I don't know.
Okay. Thanks, Dino.
Thank you.
Use it all.
Okay, the second item was, it was a particularly chilly day, I believe, when we had the workshop. Unfortunately, courtside was empty for a couple days
Because it was too cold.
because it was just too cold. So, we realized that we have the capabilities of putting heating units right into courtside. There doesn't seem to be a long-term planning need. We think quickly got a quote for that, and we could probably vote on that right now.
That's on the agenda.
And, okay, never mind. Long-term planning committee, do we need to motion to actually establish a long-term planning committee?
I believe you do.
Yes.
I mean, I think that's fine. Yeah. I mean, we need to collect people and go through
Yeah,
the
but
process, but I think the idea
have to
is,
start the
yes,
process.
let's start the process.
So,
I motion we establish a long-term planning committee and ask Paul to put out a request for resumes.
I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
progress, thank you. And then we could talk among ourselves who, if we want a liaison to that committee.
Mhm.
Okay, Paul, there was a request to include at our board meetings. We know that several of the subcommittees, PAC, TAC, and so forth, report out on their amenities to include that reporting as part of the board package as well. Is that something that we could work towards? So in other words, court utilization.
You're talking about the data for all the amenities, not just pickleball and
Yeah,
tennis.
some of it doesn't exist yet, although we learned that, we have swipes on the gym. We should start tracking that as a group. But yes, whatever data we have, there seem to be a lack of transparency to the community as a whole that they didn't even realize that we had it. So I think if we
It's really more about collecting the data.
yeah, we can
preparing a-
include it as a appendix to our reports here, to our minutes even.
Right.
For the fitness committee?
This would be tennis data,
Or for all?
pickleball data, if we have bocce data. we
Use of
have
the
fitness
community
swipes.
center, Bible study, there's all kinds of activities. It'd be nice to be able to see month over month.
Okay.
How much use are we getting out of all of the
Each one.
amenities?
I can create a report that tracks what data we do have of each amenity and load it on a scale. So which each month, how we're doing, and I can present that as a slide at each board meeting.
Okay,
Is
That'd
that
be great.
enough work for you, Paul?
It is. Well, I got staff. we'll work on it. Once we get the
The model.
model in place and the worksheet in place, it's just plugging in numbers. So
And just a process so that we can report out.
I would agree, Joe. We really need that data organized in a way that we always have it, because too many of these discussions, we find out we don't have the data or it's inconsistent and we don't know how to compare it with data for other exercise or facility utilization. So I would strongly encourage that we get a format, get all this data so we know how to input that in our decision making.
Yeah, I don't think we need a motion for that. That's just
no,
let's get it
no,
done.
it's a just do it. Yeah,
Yep.
let's agree that we'll work towards that.
Yep.
With respect to that, though, Paul, are you comfortable with the data that we are collecting from Club Essentials or other software? Or is there maybe some support, some help we need
well, I mean,
and reporting systems or?
so the only data we have that we know can count on is the gym, because you actually have to swipe your barcode to get in, which we have hard data on the system of how many people use the gym. Now, we're gonna have to guesstimate other activities like how many people play cards on this particular day because they're not swiping in. And it's another activities happening in these rooms. We don't have.
So they don't reserve like other social events or whatever when they come to play cards or when they do something like
On the
that?
card players, it's hit and miss. Sometimes they have 4 tables, some have 6 tables. They don't never tell us, and some people get, so we don't know. I can give you a close number on average of what we have playing cards each day. I'll just have people take counts. The other activities we have to sign up for, yes, we can have hard count numbers. How many people signed up for playing spin bike classes and the aerobics classes. We have hard numbers who signed up because you have to pay for those classes. We can track that easily.
I'm not asking you to do more work, but maybe there are some things that can be moved over into a reservation type of system that Club Essentials is doing already, and if not,
Well, they are, I mean, they are all, you have to reserve on Club Essentials right now to get into any of the activities that are paid classes. But just for people to show up to play cards, you have to pay for it. It's just, come as you have to pay for it. So we're not charging them to just walk in.
okay.
So that's more of a guesstimate.
I had asked Paul at a recent executive committee meeting, because I'm not involved in every activity in the community. How much use are we having of the entire community center? And your answer was from 7 to 4, it's completely packed. So if somebody were to
Right.
call and say, I'd like a room, we just don't have that.
And during season, which is November through April, if somebody wants to reserve a room for a private event or whatever else, we say no, because we just have too much demand for the regular activities. I mean, right now in Suite A, just over one wall there, we typically have 8 tables for card play. We packed in 11 tables today for cards. So times 4 per table, that's 44 people in the room.
It's a good situation to have, because it's like every inch of the community is being used. People are happy. People are, You know, you can just, I walked up to the meeting today, there's just all kinds of activity around the community center, but we're kind of bursting at the seams right now. So anything I mean, I think we really do need to have the data, because if we're going to be making decisions on where we're going to spend the money, you know, it's not just the commentary, we really need the data.
And to Jim's point, you know, if we're 3-5 years down the road, at least we have history to look back on and make decisions.
Exactly.
I mean, I watch the parking lot each day now, and I've already noticed the past few days in the mornings, the parking lot's now completely full. So I've already instructed my staff now, starting Monday of next week, we're now parking over next to the tennis courts on the west side to alleviate the pressure we have now. So there you go. So
Okay, the next item was to look at the board approval level of 250,000, which was established, I believe, in 2007, 2008, and see if it should be adjusted by the cost of living. Seems sometimes we get bogged down by our ability to make decisions by that level. I know the finance committee has taken that under advisement, and I think that's the right place to be. And they will make a recommendation if they think that's appropriate. Item 6, short-term sitting behind the pickleball courts 4 through 6. Those are the courts closest to the main thoroughfare. I think the thought there, later on, we'll make a recommendation related to a master landscaping plan, but in the meantime, just having some way for spectators to sit on and look at games in those back courts.
Speak pavers, is that what you're saying?
Well, we have to be careful because of the infrastructure that's back there. All the watering system for the tennis courts runs through there. There's also some gas utility lines, so we have to be creative, I think, in terms of what we might want to put there.
Can we put some bench seating or sort of?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Stadium seating?
I don't think you have the room for a full stadium seating, but you might have the ability to
With
put like
2 or 3
one
rows?
Yeah, exactly. So maybe that's something, Paul, we could look into.
Can we put that on the
brainstorm a
list and
little
get
bit.
some estimates for one of the next board meetings?
yes.
Okay.
I briefly mentioned the desire to have a master plan using the engagement of a landscaping designer to take a look at our entire community footprint and to determine what do we aspire the landscaping to look like. We might not be able to do everything day one, but instead of doing piecemeal improvements to the landscaping and the foliage, to actually have a plan that we're working towards. So I do think that that's probably something we need to agree on, that there'll be a cost associated with that, Paul. I have no idea what that cost would be. I think we talked to one person midsummer and we got a number that was very high.
Would it make sense for us to at least elicit some, you know, so we've got not one, but several people to choose from, and they would come in and pitch and say, let's look at the community, come with us with ideas. I don't know that it necessarily would cost us anything if people were pitching
That's
to us.
Yep, great suggestion. Yeah.
You
So-
know, and then we can look at them and say, we've got some great ideas here, number one, but whoever presents the best ideas and cost and plan and
Yeah, let's
experience, then.
run an RFP to get some quotes in and some concepts and ideas from 2 or 3 multiple.
I think we have some talent on the design committee. Could we draw them into this discussion?
Please.
And I think the focus on that needs to be the front entrance coming in here, because since we put the pickleball courts in, it really doesn't look very good to pull off of the boulevard into this community center. So I think we need at least, 2 or 3 bids on, how do you do this?
Yeah, looking at the
Yeah.
overall
Yeah,
campus.
look at
and
the
saying,
overall picture now.
I'll just say, Jim, the pickleball project's not complete. There's foliage that's going to be planted from the back gate of what is Court 6 towards the boulevard to close that off. And then we also have windscreens with the Pelican Marsh logo that are going to be installed facing the parking lot. But your point's duly noted.
Yeah, the designer that working with the CDD, I think would be one person for us to engage, because he's commented on that several times in other meetings. So he would be a good resource for us.
Item 8, review with the CDD if there's possible bike path options. I could Well, actually, George, I was asking you if you can get with Bob and, because you ride a bike a lot.
Sure.
Okay,
And Bob's
so.
here shaking his head, so.
Yeah, I think Paige actually had some concepts she wanted to be reviewed and see if there's something to improve safety of bike lanes and so forth, just on a short-term basis. Thank you. I meant to mention that to you. And lastly, we have 3 large sheds in the back of court 3. I think there was a ask to see if we can consolidate those and possibly either reuse the space in there for storage of other items or get rid of one of the sheds. So Paul, that's unfortunately another to do on your list if we can somehow check that feasibility. So those were the 9 items that we identified, as things that we don't have to wait for a long-term plan to just take action on.
Brian, at the November board meeting and again at the long range planning meeting, there was comments about a fundraising or donation committee. Did that make it on your list?
It made it on the list under the formation of the long-term planning committee.
Okay, so you
that
think
the-
as a subset of long-term planning?
Yeah, I don't think that's a separate committee, but it's looking at, are there alternative ways for us to gather
Raise-
funds for some of these projects?
Okay.
Raise money. Yeah.
Good.
And certainly if they feel as if, after reviewing that they need a separate effort, that's fine too. But I did capture it there.
Good, good.
Okay, I think that covers it.
Anything else? Any questions of Brian? I know we covered the things that let's just do it, but yeah, Steve. You want to come up to the microphone?
Steve Burke, Muirfield. First of all, about the landscape architect and the overall landscape design. Some of your current board members will remember that the last board did look at this and did talk to the CDD's at that time landscape planner, a woman, Ellen
Getz.
That's the person I did talk to, yes.
Ellen Getz, right. And Ellen is highly values her services. And so she told us that it would cost us $25,000 to get a plan, just to draw out a plan, not to start doing anything. And we balked at that amount at the time, but certainly that's a starting number for you guys to think about. The other thing is just a question about the spin bikes. There was some talk a couple of years ago about the possibility of building a covered deck south of the community center on that wall toward the golf course, and putting them out there. There was a lot of back and forth about the type of terrain, the land there, the whether pilings would have to be put in, how big a project that would be. I don't know where the property line there is between the golf course and the community center, but I do know that there's room for a structure there if you guys thought that was a possibility. So something to think about. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to add that to the list of the 19 items, Steve. Thanks for bringing that up.
I do have the overall site plan for Pelican Marsh, and we own just past the drainage ditch past there.
Yeah, I don't know if it's 15 feet. Paul and I looked at it also. Yeah, we'll have to get back to looking at that.
Can I ask a question about that, please? We borrow your microphone since you got a working one. Okay, we know we need room for the spin bikes, and there's a potential of putting them in the back, where Steve just mentioned we could make a very low-cost structure, kind of a little bit like the card playing room we have here in the back. Would it make sense for us to get an estimate on what that would cost? Because it might be very inexpensive, and it might turn into one of these just do it things once we know we could do it for a reasonable price. We know it needs to be done. It's a problem. Do we know, Paul, do we know what it would cost? Have we already got an estimate?
No, but it's not going to be cheap because,
Okay.
again, the bikes have to be covered because of the weather and they can't. So
Could it be a cover like what we have over the pergola?
it'd be better for me just to play with the bikes now and see with the new created pergola covered area to move the bikes over there. And I'll try that for now and see. It's just then on the days after they're done spin biking that day, and we need that space in for the card players, we'll just have to figure out, hopefully it's not raining, we'll just move them out on the other side of the screens. So for the card players.
Okay, I have a follow-up question. And some people have asked me this and I don't know the answer. Do we have spin bike classes at a certain time
Because that is when we have a teacher or that's when we have availability. If we had more availability, like the bikes had their own
The reason
spot.
why they're early in the mornings because most of the spin bike or our spin bike instructors do training. And so Alex is the largest of the trainers or the spin bike instructors. Her training starts directly after the spin bike class and throughout the whole day. So that's why she is doing it earlier in the mornings.
So even if spin bikes had their own room, there wouldn't be multiple classes?
Oh, we could then because we have a total of 3 spin bike instructors.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So there could be more classes. You appear to have classes and
We have
instructors
demand
and
we have a
classes.
demand for more classes, but right now we don't have the space
Okay,
to do
thank
it.
you.
Anything else, Brian?
No.
Any other questions or comments from the community?
Oh, there was one other item on the Just Do It. It was brought up, I think, or to discuss about security cameras around the campus. I did get an estimate because I initially had somebody come out and the guy who does our cameras now and ask him about adding additional cameras. So each tennis court we covered, as well as the bocce courts and a couple other areas. So I got that estimate in 2 days ago. Comes in at 11,000 and change. But so we have if you board just wants to do it, that's what it costs, but then we would have coverage for all the courts. And a little more coverage on the courtyard area.
Any, what's our capital fund, balance right now?
180?
180,000, so. Seems like we should,
You want to move forward on that?
yeah,
You get a motion?
yeah, so motion to move forward with the additional security cameras for the campus.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Making progress.
Yep, love it.
Hey, Brian, real quick, to your point, it is 15 feet on the south side of the building.
Yeah, okay, thanks. Yeah, we'll have to, we'll keep that in our back pocket, Steve. Good thought, but we'll see if Paul can do something with the reconfiguration until we determine if we're going to build a spin room.
Okay. Brian, thanks for, again, all the hard work you put in for the meeting and your update today. Thank you very much. Okay, moving on to new business, 10.1, approval of appointments to the fitness committee. We have, there's 2 openings on the committee. We reviewed the volunteers. There was a request put out that people responded to. After review of the applicants, the fitness committee is recommending that the board approve the appointments of Karen Gilmartin and Jay Salmon.
I move for approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we talked a little bit about this, Brian, in your planning committee discussion, but the next item is 10.2, approval of radiant heaters indoor for court sidebar. I think it was perfect timing coming off the long-term planning. We walked out there and literally had to stand 2 inches away from the heaters and didn't last long, 1 drink and we were gone. And so you want to talk about that for just a second, or do we want to go ahead and, Paul, any
I can give you some
additional comments
perspective on
and
this.
cost?
We know it'll pay for itself in terms of increasing revenue during those cold nights.
It's gonna
I mean,
pay- it's gonna
help the
pay for
community.
itself.
Yeah.
Joe, there was a second aspect to that, which was, I was speaking with Susan and Brad about the door, the potential for.
Yes,
At
yes.
the entranceway. I think
Yep.
we should vote on all of it together. It just makes sense.
Yeah, I agree. Thanks for bringing that up. What, what Matt's referring to is behind, if you go to courtside and you kind of come in right next to the wall, it's just a big open arch space. Well, the air blows through there and whatever attempts we do to bring the temperature up or down, the outside elements just blow through there. So the idea would be to construct a door there so that it blocks the airflow between there and then go glass, the rest of the plexiglass or something the rest of the way up. So that we're able to maintain the cool or the heat in that area, along with inside radiant heat around the restaurant.
And,
Is that
and we,
architecturally compatible, Joe? I mean, it doesn't look out of place.
Well, I think we would need to get, drawings of that, but I think it's going to be fine.
I think if we do all glass, make it handicap accessible, like we have most of our front entranceway to the community center, it will look perfectly fine.
Matt, do you think it challenges at all interpretations of a outdoor restaurant? Like, does it open us up to additional insurance or additional requirements from a just
Well,
change?
the door has to open out for any type of exiting. If you're an indoor facility, they have to blow out to the outdoor space. There we are. That you have to have that door exiting, let's call that east, and opening east. So, depending upon how it hangs, I really don't see a problem with that. Just a singular door with maybe a window at the top of it, 8 or 9 foot door. I think it would just be perfectly fine, but it's an exiting aspect of it more than anything else.
But that's a good question in terms of code. Are we suddenly now creating an indoor space? What?
No, we're not.
We're not. And actually, this door would open outwards, and actually for most of the year when it's, nice weather, it's just going to be latched and attached open against the wall here, so it's a thoroughfare. We're only going to shut it when it's really cold to keep the air in.
So what's the estimate on both the heaters and the door?
So the heaters themselves, this is a picture online, what they look like, and they're going to go right here in the ceiling. Be 5 of them because it's each section of the bar is a octagon, so they'll be there. So they're about just over $1,000 each. So there's 5,000, so we're spending $5,000 for the 5 heaters plus the additional electrical work, about 2,000. So I'm guessing 7. And then depending on how expensive a door we go, so I thought that probably around $10,000 should cover everything.
Yeah, I was thinking about 3,000 as well, Paul. So that's a pretty accurate number.
Oh, Steve's got a question.
So you guys, in terms of those radiant heaters, they're gonna be much higher than is typical because of the roof line.
Mhm.
So, are they gonna be effective?
Have you ever been down to Lake Park Diner?
Yeah, they're great.
Yeah, that is the challenge we have. And before we buy them, we're going to double check this. Most of the restaurants in the area that have these radiant heaters, the roof where they're covering are very much lower than ours. So it's heaters closer. So before we
Move forward,
I'm
we're
going to
need
talk
check
to
it.
the designer who sells these to make sure how far the heat radiates down and letting him know the height of our ceilings to make sure they're going to be effective.
Yeah, the reversible fans, if the fans are reversible, it should help with that.
And the doors will be closed, right? Presumably, these big doors will be closed as they are in the picture when we had the heater on.
Well, they're just throwing out the door, but the screens. Yeah.
The roll down screens can be up, and the regular screens, the sun screens can be down.
Yes.
Regarding the fans, apparently they've already been used and reversed and they've noticed a big difference in keeping the warmth in there.
Jerry, yes?
I think you better check with the fire marshal on the type of door. That's a means of egress, okay, and ingress. And, that door coming out of this community center is an emergency door. That's going to complement that. The door coming out is a 2-door, jump out, this is a single door. You're gonna need to get fire marshal approval before you do anything.
That will be the plan.
It does not have to be a lockable door, does it?
No.
You can't have
Okay, thanks, Jerry.
So do we want to act on that?
Yes.
On Paul's review, do we want to table that until we get additional feedback in terms of the performance of the heaters?
How about just approve the money contingent on the.
Yeah, then I think we can
Yeah, right. Then we're-
get together again. So,
Right.
motion?
So, well, that's fine, but so dollar amount. So we said 7 or so for the heaters and the door itself was how much?
About 3.
About 3. So we're going to motion for a project to improve the heating conditions of the interior of the restaurant space not to exceed 10,000. Is that what we're suggesting? Okay.
Why don't we do 12 just to be safe, not to exceed or something
I knew
like
you were
that?
going to say that, Matt. I was just tossing the softball.
Yeah,
Thank you.
that makes sense.
I got a reputation, you know. So why don't we motion that we add a door and heating units to the restaurant not to exceed $12,000 contingent upon the I guess the approval of the fire marshal as well as the certification of the functionality of the heaters.
Do we have a first? Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. The last item on new business is 10.3. Review the tennis advisory committee recommendation to amend the current restriction of local guest play on the tennis courts from Monday through Friday to Monday through Saturday prior to 12 p.m. I'm going to turn it over to you, Uwe.
Yeah, thank you, Joe. So please bear with me. I have a couple of things to say on this because on the TAC committee meeting on Monday, we had a very good turnout. There were two recommendations made at the TAC committee. One was to increase the guest fee to $15. And the second one was to extend the current local guest restriction to include Saturdays. Currently, it's only weekdays, and this would extend it to Saturdays as well. So in other words, a Monday to Saturday, no local tennis guests until 12:30 was the recommendation. On item one on the guest fee, I spoke with Paul, and it affects other amenities, just the way the rules are written. So while I support this recommendation personally, a bit more consultation is required before bringing it to the board for a vote. That's why it didn't end up on the agenda, in case you're wondering. So hence it was left off, but leave it with us. We'll come back soon on that because there's actually a bigger discussion on house guests, local guests and guest fees that I think needs to be had. So we'll get back to that one. On item two, the Saturday restriction. First of all, I want to thank the TAC committee. It's been 2 months of very active engagement on that topic. There's been a lot of back and forth. The reason was because there was input to both loosen guest rules as well as to tighten the guest rules. And so it wasn't an easy topic to sort of wrestle. In the end, the residents spoke out pretty strongly in favor of tightening the guest rules, and we saw that at the meeting on Monday. I would also like to thank the residents for their engagement on the tennis rule discussion. Quite often, I go to TAC meetings as the TAC liaison, and there are not very many people there. It might be myself and Joe as guests. So it was great to see real engagement by the community. I think the more of that we have, the better. So lots of input on the Saturday restrictions, and thank you for coming out to provide your input. Last but not least, I want to thank the group play organizers. Those of us that play tennis know who they are. In my mind, they provide an amazing volunteer service. I'm a member in a club up north where we don't have that, and we don't get out to play nearly as often and as much as we do with the system we have here in Pelican Marsh. And actually, they're the ones that are often put into this difficult situation. They're competing for very limited court space, which we're stuck with because where we are. They try to get the number of players right on each court. They work very hard. I know some of them get texts and emails at 8, 10 o'clock at night. Cancellations, people can't make it. And so they're the ones most affected by the actual implementation of the rules. And while there's often criticism on rules being broken, and that is an issue, and I think we need to address enforcement of rules. I also see sometimes why that happens when these group organizers are trying to get a game off the ground and trying to make last-minute changes. So we got some valuable comments from those group organizers as well on the rule changes, and I would like to ask the TAC committee to continue to work on some of those more complex issues on how to make those group organizers put their place together. So I'd like to send that back to tax because there were, and even on the Monday discussion and the input from residents, there were several points brought up that are not covered by this Saturday decision alone. So there's more to be done. Guest rules being a really big one, house guests being another one, fees being one. So I appreciate what TAC does on that file, and I would like you to continue to work with the community and with the group play organizers to see, how we tweak those. As to the Saturday restriction that was put forward, I fully support that recommendation by TAC, and I would like to ask for discussion or input from the board members. Anybody have any?
I guess the question I would ask is, any of the board object to moving forward with this at this point? Any comments or suggestions or should we,
Comment, Joe?
sure?
I've been playing tennis here for about a decade, and there's been a structural change. And it's a supply and demand one. And for some of you who played a long time ago and don't fully understand what's happening here, I can kind of explain it because I investigated this because this came up. In the old days, generally tennis players really like to play, as a general rule, they like to play 3 times a week. So when I first started playing tennis, it was impossible to get a court Monday, Wednesday, and Friday because everybody wanted 3 times a week and wanted a day to recover because you're old, you need to recover. And so it got to be impossible to get a court during the nice times of the day. And so some people just gave up and started going to other days. But what happened is some group leaders said, well, I can't get courts for my group, or I'd like to have a group. And they actually created new groups and took the, supply and demand. They went with Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. And so in a while, Tuesday and Thursday, still not quite a Monday and Wednesday yet, but due to the fact that some people are young and fit, they'll play 4 times a week or something. So some of the Monday, Wednesday, Friday people play on Saturday. So what's happened over the years, over the recent years, I'm going to say the last 2 or 3 years more than any, is that these new groups that are going to play Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday have now made Saturday a high demand day or in the morning time. And so whenever people put in court request sheets, it used to only put in court request sheets for Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And now it's essentially every day except Sunday, because Sunday is a laggard day. But Saturday is now the biggest day for court request sheets when it used to be a nothing day. And so just that supply and demand, tennis is growing. People don't realize that because pickleball is growing also, but tennis is growing. And so that's what's happened. I've talked to several board members and we've all kind of looked around and saw what happened. And I also support this. This is, we need to make sure that the members can get a court Saturday when they want to.
Okay. Any other comments by the board?
Yeah, did you want external input as well?
Any, hold on, before we go to with that, did we have any more comments from the board? Any objections to this change? Okay.
We've had this discussion for 22 years. I think we ought to move forward.
Well, and I'm ready to make a motion as soon as we get all the input, so.
I think the only challenge we have is there's 2 different ways that we can do this. We could do it specific to the tennis guidelines that we have, or we can try to make it consistent across all our amenities, which we strive to do. I know from a pickleball perspective, having been the chairperson there, that we always try to follow what tennis is doing, and I think vice versa to make everything consistent. And I know I've talked to the chairperson of the pickleball committee currently. She has no objection to moving this forward. In fact, we voted on this last April. So I would recommend we put it in both places.
Is this an issue with bocce? I don't think it is it?
Yeah, so I think if we just treat, as Paul had outlined for us, I don't know if everyone has this or not.
Yeah, the one that we've drafted is only for tennis today. It was for changing Rule 11 for the tennis rules.
Well, actually, he presented to us a way of modifying just section B of the foundation rules.
You want to cover that, Paul?
Yeah, so section B of the general rules and regulations cover all the amenities, and it says that during season from November 1st to April 30th, Monday through Friday, prior to 12 p.m., local guests are not allowed to use any of the facilities. We can just change that now to Saturday, so it applies to everybody.
To me, that makes perfect sense. Everything's consistent.
I like that.
I like it.
Okay, and
I
I
agree.
hear the comment from bocce and from pickleball, so I think that
I think we've covered ourselves.
yeah, that I would be concerned about having consultation with those other groups, but since
Everybody's
the
here.
comment is right here, right now, I'm okay with that. Paul, do you want to give us a wording that I can make a motion on?
So the wording now will read in section B, number 9, it's going to state now during season from November 1st through April 30th, Monday through Saturday, prior to 12 p.m., local guests are not allowed to use any of the facilities. The board may expand or further limit guest use of the facilities as needed.
So I motion that we vote on that.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. Any other comments on this particular item? We'll move on to final board comments, resident comments, and adjournment. Any other board comments with respect to the meeting today or anything else we should put on the table? Resident comments? Relevant resident comments?
3 minutes or less?
Older than that.
Oh,
yeah.
I look better than you. Just very briefly, I made this presentation at the tennis.
Closer, closer.
Made this presentation at the tennis committee meeting. I was on the original tennis committee that John Shuey appointed 18 years ago to structure the rules. And I only want to speak on the guest rules. I don't know of any other community that says Sunday is the off day. Try and play tennis at Pelican Bay on a Sunday. Try and play tennis at La Plata, any other club. Try and play golf when the golf course is empty and you're not a member. I think basically, that our amenities are here for the residents. They're not here for people who are guests. It's very easy to get into this community. All you do is you go to the gate and you say, okay, what are you doing? I'm going to the tennis court. I'm going to the restaurant. You're in. A number of years ago, we had issues of people coming here because the word had gotten out in the community that if you want free play, come to Pelican Marsh. It's a public court. And I think the best way to avoid that is to extend that rule to Sunday. Even if the courts are, I don't even care if the courts are empty 7 days a week. It's an amenity that belongs to residents, not to guests from the outside. And I know you did careful looking at the numbers and everything and the usage of the courts, but I would recommend that you extend this to Sunday.
Thank you, Arthur.
It
Thank you,
was-
Arthur. You mentioned this in the meeting the other day. We spent a
were
lot
at
of
that
time
meeting?
that day talking about it. We've heard about it today. I don't think we're going to address that today.
Okay.
Thank you very much,
enough.
though. We're always open to hearing people's suggestions. Anything else? Yes. Jerry, you got to talk loud or come up to the microphone.
Sitting here and thinking that the main entrance into courtside is through that door, and all of the screens are down, am I correct?
Could you repeat that?
Yeah, Jerry's asking.
He's saying the main door that.
If all the
screens
if
are
all the
down.
screens are down, that would be the main entrance. Yes, correct.
Out. My head's slow, getting older. You got a problem with ADA, I think, because somebody that wants to enter into courtside in a wheelchair is not gonna have enough maneuverability if the door swings out. There's really not a lot. You're gonna need to get a permit and get that checked, not just the fire marshal, but you got an ADA problem.
Yeah, 3.5-foot door, Jerry. It'll work.
Did you hear what I said?
He heard what you said.
We will get it all.
He's
checked
saying it's a
out.
3.5-foot door and it will work, but your point is, Jerry, your point's well taken. Thank you.
Joe, I would second that. I've had experience. Check it, make sure we're okay.
Yep.
But Joe, we're on board with getting heaters even while we're waiting to learn about doors, right?
Yeah. Any other comments, questions? Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Oh, wait,
I so move.
there's one, and this I saw online, but this actually, so Eileen is saying about Comcast service being poor. I just asked Eileen that just please contact me directly in the office and explain what your situation is. And I will get involved personally and with Comcast because a lot of residents who've had issues, a lot of it's just taking new equipment and it solved the problem. So just please give me a call and we'll get it worked out for you.
Now can I get a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very, very much, everybody.
Good show.